Good morning. It's 7:19 in the morning. Oh my God. we're gonna continue reading. It's so freaking hot in my room. Like, it's actually unbearable. Hmm. October 27. Now, what about this independent activity? Meisner asks. What are some of its characteristics? It has to be urgent, truthful, and difficult to do, says Vincent. For the moment, I would concentrate on the difficulty, Meisner says. What else? John raises his hand. You brought up the example from Stanislavski, and he said about public solitude, and you said that if you really involved yourself in the activity just as you are at home combing your hair in the mirror, it would be poetic if you were totally involved in it. Poetic solitude. What else? Hmm. Sarah leans forward in her seat. That the activity and the reason you choose to do it can be exaggerated or too far fetched. That it can't be too exaggerated or too far fetched. It has to be something realistic, not like Mrs. Ronald Reagan driving a taxi, because she's a terrible driver, Meisner exclaims, and the class laughs. What else? What did I say was the essence of the independent activity? The most important element in it. The reason why, John says, the specific reason you're doing it. That's important, but it's not the most important element. The difficulty, John says. Yes, the difficulty. It strengthens your concentration, Sarah adds. Indeed, it does. Meisner says that's common sense. He pauses for a moment before asking, how many of you have some kind of reasonable familiar knowledge of another creative art? Bruce raises his hand. You do? Music? Singing, Bruce says. Uh, Indeed, Meisner says, it's common sense. He pauses for a moment before asking, how many of you have some kind of reasonable familiar knowledge of another creative art? Bruce raises his hand. You do? Music? Singing, Bruce says. But it's not an accomplished but I'm not an accomplished musician. Suppose you wanted to be. What's the first thing you have to do? What's the first thing you have to know, especially besides knowing you have a good voice? What do you have to know if you want to play in Imperial Concerto with Philip Mo Philip with Philharmonic? Bruce has no answer. Anybody? Meisner asks. You have to know the music, Vince suggests. Of course. You have to open the piano. Wendy says, no, to be an accomplished musician, you have to realize that it takes 20 years to master it. A master. Meisner uses the word, is thrilling. Meisner's use of the word is thrilling. He pauses before adding, and the same is true of acting. He pauses before adding, and the same is true of acting. The students regard him soberly. Well, does anybody want to say anything? After a moment, he adds, I do. Why do you think this is vital? Why should you be doing that independent activity? Why did I choose to have you do it? Anna, because you learn to use your instincts based on what somebody else does to you, she says. As opposed, wait, what? The students regard him soberly. Well, does anybody want to say anything? After a moment, he adds, I do. Why do you think this is vital? Why should why should you be doing that independent activity? Why should I choose you to have you do it? Because you learn to use your instincts based on what somebody else does to you, she says, as opposed to what you have to achieve by yourself. What else? It helps us in concentration because it takes us out of the classroom. Anna continues. We're doing something that we have to do with we have to do which is unrelated to somebody else, and that doesn't matter where we are. We could be at home or on the street or even on stage. It is of its own world. Also, it's good to have something else going on in the exercise bouncing off somebody else. That's true. That's very hard, Anna says. What? Meisner asks in surprise. I think that's very hard, Anna says in a firm but quiet voice. Time, Meisner says. Give yourself time. In only 19 years and 11 months, you'll be amazed at how simple it all was. This class laughs. It seemed to be quiet here today. Nobody seems to want to be dramatic, but that's all right, provided we follow the basic rules. Meisner has just interrupted a repetition exercise between Ralph, whom Wendy described on the first day of class as stocky, burrowed, and stooped. He was a wrestler in high school, and Dave, a dark, slightly imperious young man who was a first rate college swimmer who currently teaches the sport in New Jersey Health Club. Now, for the most part, it was pretty spotty. The weakness in it was the way you kept letting it drop all the time. In terms of continuity, the contact between you broke too often. You let it stop. When the thing logically seemed to end, you let it. Can I help you? No, you can't help me. Period. Can I pick that up? No, you can't pick that up. Finished. I don't mind because basically, like others today, it was relaxed, easy, and unforced. These are all significant values, but the continuity was missing. I understand that. Dave says defensively, but I'm uncomfortable with its application to what I was doing. I didn't want to force it or push it, just to let it happen. You were absolutely right. In terms of in terms of repetition, it was up to Ralph. Meisner adds, "That's right." Dave agrees and begins to gather up the deck of playing cards scattered over the table. His independent activity was to make a house of cards. I'm sorry, Ralph says. It seems that I was waiting for something to happen. And when it didn't happen, Meisner interrupts, my dear fellow, I have illustrated that there's no such thing as nothing, right? And I also have illustrated that what you do doesn't depend on you, it depends on the other fellow. He was concentrated intently. You have nothing noted. You have noted that, but you let it slide without comment. Let me tell you something. I am in a way delighted with what I have seen so far today because it represents an understanding of problem on its smoothest, least excited level. I like it. It's like a vacation, and the reason you behaved as you did was valuable. It wasn't producing my any cliches. It was true. He regards Ralph intently for a moment and then asks, are you afraid of him? Yeah, Ralph says quietly, sometimes. You should use that. It will do something for him, for you. Why are you afraid of him? He's a big guy. He's very willful, very tempestuous, and I feel I have to go on his good side. That's not theoretical, Meisner replies. It's bad for you, and it's unfair to him. You're putting him in a position of having $100 in his pocket, and all he is allowed to buy is jelly beans. Do you understand that? But in a real way, I liked what you did. There was progress in it. There was knowledge in it. The thing that's going to bring it to a different level has yet to come. The reason behind the knock, the reason why you come in and engage in human conversation, you follow, has yet to come. The exercise between Bruce and Leela proves tedious and painful to watch. Bruce has chosen to play the harmonica as his independent activity, but he does so for no compelling reason. It is merely unskilled noodling. Leela knocks timidly on the door and enters when Bruce opens it for her. Rosemary, who is sitting in the front row next to Meisner's desk, gasps. Leela has chosen to costume herself in a flaming red woolen bathrobe with matching slippers. She is affecting a generalized emotional state on seeing her. Bruce says, I thought you'd never get here. Meisner is visibly distressed, and after a few minutes removes his glasses and covers his eyes with his hands, but his head bent over his desk. In another minute, he interrupts the exercise. There is so much to talk about here, he says, lifting his head and repositioning his glasses. First of all, Leela, you are playing the part of some unhappy woman. True, Leela says, sitting beside Bruce on the bed. Where did you get that costume? The robe? It was given to me years ago. You brought it in because it fit the part, Meisner asks. Maybe, I didn't think of it that way, but that could be behind it, and I didn't realize it. What did you wear when you came to class? Black sweater and pants. That's what you should have done the exercise in. Right, Leela says simply. In other words, you didn't give up acting out your cliches. I can't help you to learn how to act. I'm trying to get you to do an exercise, not play a part. I understand. I knew I was way off base. No talking, Meisner exclaims, and the extent of his distress is evident in the sharpness of his tone. You were way off base. You were way off base. You were like somebody, I'll say this, and they won't say anymore. You were like somebody who's been playing the piano for years by ear, who decides to study the instrument and finds a teacher. This is not meant unkindly. Who says, okay, learn to do that? Hmm. Like somebody who's been playing the piano for years by ear, who decides to study the instrument and finds a teacher. No talking. Um, I want to say to you that when you come to take your first lesson, okay, dude, who says learn? Okay, learn to do that. Meister hold his right hand before him as if he were seated on the keyboard of the piano. Learn to raise a finger without tensing and then drop it. Then learn to raise another, and he takes you back to the absolute beginning of learning how to play. And if I were that teacher, I wouldn't say that to you you that when you come to take your first lesson, you should be dressed like Wanda Landowska, a great harp shidors sh, sh, harp sword swordist who's been dead for about 40 years, wearing gold lame with a 33 feet long. I don't tell you to dress for the exercise. If you've got slacks on, that's what you do in it. Right. Now, Meisner says, look at Bruce, an independent activity has to do two things. It must be difficult and there must be a compelling reason why you're doing it. Um, if you had picked a piece of music you had never played before in your life, that unfamiliarity would be part of the difficulty in learning how to play it. You follow? Yeah, I say you follow, and you say yeah. I can't play a Chopin etude on this harmonica because I don't know how to play. How it goes in my head, Bruce says. They pick a piece that fits that instrument, one you know but have never played, and practice it with all the difficulties that involves. I don't care if you choose to learn Dutchland, Uber Allays, as long as you learn to play it like a virtuoso. And the next thing is, why is it absolutely imperative that you learn to play Deutsches Land Uber Alles on the harmonica? If you decide why, you are exercising your imagination. If it is difficult, it will intensify your concentration. When something is difficult to do, it forces you to use your concentration. Have I made yourself clear? Bruce nods and Meisner shifts his gaze back to Leela. He's profoundly disturbed. God almighty, woman, stop acting. I can't stand it. Give the problems here your attention, your concentration and your time. Your concentration and your time. Don't behave acting as if acting were something that any amateur can turn on. It's not true. I can understand why, after a good many years of acting, it's hard for you to throw away your habits. I can understand where you got the idea to dress for the part, but it's nonsense. I agree. All right, you agree. You both are making me be a very sharp and determined because you don't put enough work into what you're doing. And don't tell me that you do. I am a past master at knowing what has been thought out. I will not let you take this any more lightly than I do. Now I beg you, work the way a real actor works. Bring the results of your efforts, and I will be the first to recognize it. But don't throw away something at me if I were what? If I were an amateur that didn't know the difference? I repeat, Leela, don't act. Bruce, an independent activity has to be difficult, but that strengthens your concentration and it has to be justified because everything must have a reason for being. I don't care if it's only because there's a part you want to play, and in order to play it, you have to learn to play that German song like a master. Have I made myself clear? Yes, extremely. Leela says, Well, okay, my friends. Well, okay, my friends. Meisner says, the episode has drained him, and his voice, through amplified, is no more than a whisper. I have all the sympathy that you need. But please give give me back percentage of what I give you instead of kicking me in the butt and thinking you're going to get away with it. I won't have it. The country is full of actors who have been trained beautifully by me, but they worked. I say, don't act, don't fake, don't pretend, work. That will train your concentration, your actor's faith, and maybe your emotion. Then you can hold up your head and say you're learning how to act, and I can hold up mine and saying I'm teaching you. Oh my God, that, Leela. After a scene like that, I feel so discouraged and old. Meisner unlocks the door of his office. It's brutal, on me as well as them, but they provoked me and I couldn't help myself. It's not something to be proud of, but scenes like this do happen and they are nothing to be ashamed of either. Besides, I'm too old to worry about it. He enters Scott Roberts, follows Sandy. He says, I got the job. They asked me to direct Cocteau play next season at Circle Rec. That's terrific, Meisner says. I'm proud of you. I hope you'll come to see it, Scott says. Yes, Meisner says. If I'm still alive, and that's a big if, I'll come to see it. Good. I just wanted you to know. I'll see you on Monday. Good night, Meisner says. You know, Meisner says, picking up his black wool coat with no mink collar from the office daybed. 20 or more years ago, Leela was a star, musical comedies mostly, but straight plays too. She was beautiful and she could belt out a song. Scott tells me she does television commercials now. I wouldn't know. I don't see well enough to watch television anymore. He turns off the light and locks the office door. I'm surprised and touched when she calls when she called me last spring and asked to become a student. It must be very humbling to return to square one. She realized she said that, and if she wanted to go on working in the theater, she would have to grow to deepen herself on an actress. And she's right, I think. Well, we'll see. Maybe after a class like this, she'll quit. Meisner walks slowly to the elevator. I am heartened, though, by the progress of most of others. Do you remember the exercise Joseph did with me several classes ago? You're busy. Yes, I'm busy. Simple and forced. He held his own. And also Anna striked me as very talented. Well, we'll see. Right now, I'm delighted to go home. After a day like this, I need a good stiff drink. Okay, next chapter. Oh my god, I spelled it wrong. Whatever. Anyway. Okay. And we have 10 minutes, so. Beyond repetition, student. I'm getting the feeling. Don't think, do. I'm getting a very good feeling to have. That's an actor thinking. How does an actor think? He doesn't think, he does. Right. That's a good feeling. Listen, everybody. Next time the person comes in has to have a reason for coming in, and the reason has to be simple and specific and not death-defying in its urgency. In other words, come in for a can of soup, not because your brother has pinned another truck on the street and they can't get him out. Suppose you have a party and your neighbor, your partner, has a rare collection of Sinatra. So you want to borrow it, but no more dramatic than that. It gives you a reason for knocking at the door, and then you forget it anyway. You're making a spaghetti sauce and you have no oregano, see? So that influences the hook, or so that influences the knock, says Ray. The knock isn't arbitrary, right? The knock is just as it is, one knock. But if you come in for a pinch of oregano, what the hell kind of knock does that indicate? John raises his hand. I have a question. When I was outside before knocking on the door, I made up a little story for myself because you said that the other person who came in should have something he needs from the partner. About halfway through, I was going to bring it into the exercise, but I didn't because I was unsure if you wanted it brought up or if you just wanted to root us. Just to root you. Never bring it up because the script will bring it up anyway. Hamlet, don't keep secret what making him feel so lousy. You follow? The question for today is what, if anything, are you getting from this procedure? What and in what way, if any, are you being held by this process? Based on the fact that none of you are kids and all of you have had experience, what's been going on with you in this class? Rosemary raises her hand. What I am trying to concentrate on is forgetting everything I've done before and just listening to what's going on and not applying it to anything else. I'm a little confused, but that's okay. Why are you confused? Because I don't know how I'm going to listen and answer truthfully moment to moment when I get a script. That's the way you are going to begin with a script. Be patient. You'll soon see. Who else has something to say? Curiously enough, just a minute, Leela, for a class who has been considerably experienced and there are not many problems involved. Leela, what's your question? I had no question. I thought I would try to answer what this class means to me so far. The answer to what it means to you is one word: truth, reality. The truth of your instincts is the root of your foundation, right? Right. You'll see you'll see you've all had experience. That's not only my problem, it's your problem too, right? I was going to say in answer to your question about this class, about what this class means, is that it seems to me that usually when I have acted well, it has been by accident. And finding a way to act well on a regular basis is maybe what this class is doing for me, I think. That's great. The other way, Ray adds, the way that Lee Strasberg and the actors studio people use seem to do the opposite. They make you go inside, they make you get stuck in there. That's right. I told Lee that when he was alive, I said to him, You introvert the already introverted. All actors," I said, "like all artists, are introverted because they live on what's going on in their instincts, and to attempt to make the conscious is to confuse the actor." Needless to say, he didn't pay attention to me, but that's the reason I'm a better teacher than he was. Listen, Philip, how do you feel? Uptight. The fair haired young woman replies instantly. Then he stammers nervously, How do I feel now? That's what I said. I feel nervous, Philip says, sitting dejectedly on the bed. Sarah, his partner, who sits beside him, don't you know that you're always going to feel nervous? You're the nervous type. What makes you feel nervous? Thinking that other people will see me nervous. How do you want other people to see you? Relaxed. Well, they'll think you're relaxed if you don't tell them you're nervous because you don't look nervous. It comes out, though, in a certain indecision about just repeating. How are you going to fix that? I'm going to deal more with my partner and less with me, your nervousness. How did you get so nervous? I'm not so sure. Maybe a lot of sugar, a lot of coffee, a lot of parents. Parents, Philip asks. Yeah, they did it. The class laughs. I told you what to do to your mother. Kick her? Just kick her? I didn't say kick her. I said retaliate. Punch her out? Punch her out. I'll tell you what, don't punch her out. Just lay all your attention on Sarah and stop announcing to the world how nervous you are. Everybody's nervous, aren't you? The class responds with a chorus of yes. You know, you get better all the time. You don't have real freedom yet, as you well know, because you're always afraid you'll be wrong. I think that's where your mother comes in, and father. Him too? Yeah. Stay away from them. I do that as much as I can, then put all your attention on Sarah. Meisner regards Philip and adds, it gets better. You had long passages in there that were pure without your announcing how without your announcing how you felt. Nobody gives a damn how you feel, you know? Nobody cares. We care when you're concerned about you feels hurts your exercise. What do you want? For us to burst into tears when you're nervous? To hell with us. Put your attention on Sarah and repeat what you hear, okay? As Philip and Sarah return to their seats, Meisner removes his microphone and whispers to Scott Roberts, you know, he gets better all the time. Now, I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm talking in general. Where is the performance born in good actors? What makes a Maureen Stamplin? What does her performance come from? Herself, Ray says, and her ability to believe in given circumstances of the script. John adds, she has great actor's faith, Meisner says. What is actor's faith? She believes in the imaginary circumstances are truer than true, Joseph says. Let's just say that she believes they are true. What else? Ralph, you're willing to believe it even though you may doubt it's true. A real actor finds a way to eliminate the doubt. Vince holds up his hand. You do it for your own sake without having to understand it intellectually. What does in, intellect have to do with acting? Meisner asks. Nothing, Vince says. Meisner nods and for a moment seems lost in thought. Next week, I'm going to start you with scripts, which we will treat as they were exercises. They usually they're usually better parts than you normally get to play, even though they're very old-fashioned. They all have human problem. Scott, it's up to you when I have to get them out. I'll have them on Monday, Scott Roberts says. I'd like to start on the problem of preparation before Christmas, Meisner says with a sly grin. I hope it doesn't ruin your holiday. Stop. The true. Without. Okay, that's it. That's all, y'all. Um, we started chapter 5 briefly. I think we could probably finish this chapter today. Let's see. One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh, anywho, I will see you all later tonight. Peace out.